Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we welcome you once again on this Wednesday evening to the airwaves of Salam Media and on all the various platforms of Salam Media, wherever you are listening to us, wherever you are watching us from, we welcome you to the show. And obviously tonight, it was great sadness, it was a lot of emotion, I must add, as well as we learned this morning of the assassination of the leader of Hamas, the political bureau of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh, rahimahumullah. And clearly it came as a shock to many, many of us. And we will call it the martyrdom of Dr. Ismail Haniyeh. And although it hasn't come as a surprise, many of us have been shocked. And we've seen it in the past. We've seen it with Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, Dr. Abdul Aziz Rantisi, and many of the leaders of Hamas who were killed as a result of targeted assassinations that were carried out by this Zionist regime. And we know they are not going to stop, but at the end of the day, it will never ever leave a power vacuum. Perhaps this may be a temporary setback for Hamas, but knowing the Palestinians, they are a chosen nation. They have been chosen specifically by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a group of people, as a special nation. A nation that has endured so much over the years, and they will continue enduring until liberation, until freedom is achieved. And it is against this background that this evening we are focusing, paying tribute to the late Hamas leader. And also at the same time, we're going to unpack what the assassination really means, and also to understand who Ismail Haniyeh truly was. And this is the reason why we've assembled a number of guests this evening. Shortly, we will be joined by Lina Abu Raji out of Amman in Jordan. We've got Professor Nidal Sakar, who will be joining us a bit later. We've got Dr. Firoz Osman from South Africa, Maulana Abdul Khalik Ali, and also out of Israel, we'll be joined by Professor Jeff Halper. And we've seen throughout the entire day trending on social media, trending on WhatsApp groups, even here in South Africa, and trying to understand, trying to get to grips, trying to make sense of what has actually happened. But at the end of the day, it is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It has been the desire of Dr. Ismail Haniyeh as well. And he knew at some point in time he will be meeting his creator, but in a condition where his creator is happy with him. We know what has happened to his family, a number of members of his family that were martyred during the genocide that had taken place in Gaza and that is still taking place. We know what Ismail Haniyeh had to say. And he spoke about his children being no different from the other children in Palestine. And this is the sign of a true leader, a leader who cared, a leader who was there for his people, a leader who was there with his people, and he never ever gave up. And even with this temporary setback, the Palestinian nation will never ever give up. And right now we're going across to be joined on screen by our guests as we await Sister Lina Abu Raji and Dr. Firoz Osman, who are already in the background. So we're going to bring them on right now to welcome both of them to this evening's broadcast. Sister Lina, I see Dr. Firoz is coming on. Dr. Firoz Osman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khairan so much for your time, Sister Lina. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wonderful you able to join us, but under very, very sad circumstances.
Yeah, wa alaikum salam. Of course, it's nice to see you, but of course, today's circumstances are very heavy on every Palestinian's heart.
Well, certainly is. And I'm sure equally heavy for you as well, Professor Nidal Sakar. Assalamu alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's always a pleasure to be with you, brother.
Yes, Dr. Firoz, I'd like to begin with you. And, over the years, I know you've had a very, very long association with a number of members of Hamas. And for someone who actually met Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh, rahimahullah, personally as well. And just to try and unpack and to understand your reaction when we learned this morning of this targeted assassination, this killing, this martyrdom of Ismail Haniyeh.
Well, it was absolutely shocking. For me, I try to grapple with the immense, deep faith of the Palestinian people. How is it possible for them to go through almost 10 months, I think, of such severe tests? And when I saw Ismail Haniyeh, in April, just 3-4 months ago, he had just received the news of the martyrdom of his 3 children, of his 4 grandchildren. And, I was together with a group of people from other parts of Africa, from Asia, some from Eastern Europe, Uzbekistan, and so on. And we all commiserated with him. We sent our condolences. But what I took away is when I saw the deep pain in his eyes was the steely determination, the honor of the man, absolutely dignified. And he was inspiring us under those circumstances. And he said that though somebody else was living, and I forget his name, next to him, and he says, but he lost so many more members of his family, and that one lost so many more members of his family. So he was really inspiring us to continue supporting Hamas. And this is what I really came away with, that I find it difficult to fathom, but it is something that I have come to a realization that whatever the Zionists do, if people are willing to fight and die for the cause, and they say that they are willing to die for the cause rather than to remain on our knees and slave for the rest of their lives, there is nothing that the Zionists can do. It is already an immense victory for the people of Palestine with such a leadership.
Yes, and also, Dr. Firoz Osman, we've seen the reaction come through from right across the entire world. And I see Sister Lina is on, and Professor Nidal Sakar as well. And Sister Lina, obviously, you are based in Jordan as well. And clearly, just to look at the reaction from your side personally, and also the people around you, what was the reaction like this morning when we learned of this assassination?
Yeah, you wake up and you feel like the world is kind of not the same anymore. It's a very heavy feeling to learn of the assassination of this really great leader, the leader of Al-Aqsa Flood, the leader of so many manifestations of the resistance that we see today. Of course, as you know, Jordan has over 50% of Jordanians of Palestinian origin. So, of course, and everyone in Jordan is very saddened by this news. And of course, we're in touch on social media with our Palestinian brothers and sisters in Palestine as well. And I think no matter your political affiliation, everyone has a great, deep respect for this leader, especially as Dr. Firoz said, how humble he was in really bearing the brunt and being super patient, even when his grandkids were targeted during Eid, even when his own kids were targeted. And as we know, Hamas have always been very clear. Their motto is either victory or martyrdom. So this is something that I think they all expect. This is something that they know is on the path to liberation. Al-Rantisi, for example, he said, I would prefer to be killed by Apache. So these are people that are kind of being honored by God but like through this martyrdom, this is really proof of their sincerity to the Palestinian cause. And I think it's going to only fuel Palestinians and Palestinian resistance more and more. It's not going to stop Palestinians. It's not going to, make us despair or make us feel like because this one person was assassinated that somehow something has changed. I think this will fuel us and make us even stronger.
Well, I'm sure. And Professor Nidal, just to bring you back into this discussion as well, and the point I was making with Lina before we got on air is to obviously looking at the Palestinian cause, and the Palestinian cause is all about martyrdom. They are prepared to give everything. They are prepared to give their lives for a cause. And I recall during my time at media where I've seen now the third assassination of a high-profile leader, Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, Dr. Abdul Aziz Rantisi, who Lina alluded to, and now we're seeing Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh as well. And clearly it is a temporary setback at this point in time, but the Palestinian cause will continue, the struggle will continue. But just your thoughts on the person, Dr. Ismail Haniyeh, and what did he mean? What did he bring to the Palestinian cause for liberation?
As a matter of fact, actually, I take a completely different course about this. I congratulate the Ummah for the martyrdom of Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh, and actually I congratulate him himself. I put myself in his shoes, and I pray that his day today is the happiest day in his life. So we in Palestine, when we have martyrdom and when we have somebody who's martyred in the family, we take congratulations. We don't take condolence. That's number one. Number two, I've known Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh since he was a freshman in college at the Islamic University in Gaza that my father actually has started. My father has passed away just about 2 weeks ago, basically. But I've very much monitored Ismail Haniyeh growing into the leader that he became. The last time I met him was 11 years ago in Gaza, and that's before the Egyptian coup. And I've seen him growing from a very humble man, active in student leadership at the time, and then became very much like a servant or companion to Sheikh Ahmed Yassin. Then later on, Hamas was founded, and then I've known, of course, all the leaders that they had since Al-Zahar and Tisi and so forth. And let's remember that actually that they had a caravan of martyrs in Hamas that started with Sheikh Salah Shahada, and then Ibrahim Maqadme, and then Ahmed Yassin, and then we have Rantisi, and then we have Nizar Rayyan. So the Hamas has always, alhamdulillah, has introduced to this ummah role models of leaders, of dedicated servants to the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the cause of Palestine. And I trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed them with martyrdom. As you recall, I was in during the Egyptian revolution and the coup that followed. I was in some of the pivotal moments and days of those events. And I remember the day of Rabaa, where I was among almost like 500,000 people, where 10,000 people were killed in front of my own eyes. What was going through my mind at the time, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what's so special about those 10,000 people to be chosen and elected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be martyrs? Martyrdom is a great honor, is actually the greatest honor that Allah can bestow upon somebody, and not everybody gets it. Like we think that, for somebody to be martyred, that's like somebody like who's a victim or somebody that was to his ill fate. Actually, that's a great, great honor, and it is great privilege to be chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be martyr and to receive the rewards of martyrdom. I come from Bani Suhayla. I don't know if you've been following the news the last 8 days, where the cemeteries are being bulldozed, digging the grave, the bodies and the corpse out of the cemetery. But to put things in perspective, put this in the time frame how it happened. There has been negotiations for ceasefire, which actually I opposed wholeheartedly all along, and I thought I understand the wisdom of the leadership of Hamas to engage in such negotiations. This war is American war. Let's make no mistake. The weapon that killed Ismail Haniyeh is American, is made U.S. weapon. The enabling of all of this genocide and the design of this genocide and the planning of this genocide is 100% made in USA. You know, we had another martyr in Lebanon yesterday, and then we had like few martyrs before everywhere, and every day we have martyrs, and in the 50s, in the 100s, in the 60s, every single day, and it is all by design by the United States. You know, their biggest thug, criminal, so-called Netanyahu, just came back from the US completely enabled, completely encouraged to carry one massacre after another and to escalate this genocide. And they were has stand ovation 85 times with him within the 50 minutes that he spoke like the most evil filth. You know, we had the situation yesterday in Israel, for example, where like you had all of these settlers breaking through the military tribunal and you know, endorsing, encouraging the sodomy that they committing against Palestinian prisoners. So basically, like what we have, if you put everything in perspective, we have a pure battle here between good and evil. The people who are on the side of good, these are chosen by Allah, they're honored. And of course, the ultimate wish that we have is martyrdom. Victory is already, once you're on the right side, you always have victory. You're victorious, even it doesn't matter what happens to you in terms of calamity, infliction, pain, and so forth. Ismail Haniyeh got his wish, and he got the most honorable death that he could ever, you know, ask for. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, subhanallah, I trust that Allah has looked into his heart and how sincere he was, and he granted him what he wished for.
Yes, Jazakallah for that, Professor Didal. And just to come back to you, Dr. Firoz, we know in South Africa as well, Hamas and the position of the South African government that had come under severe criticism over the years in terms of their association with Hamas. And just looking at Ismail Haniyeh, the political and diplomatic face of Hamas, and the South African government recognized this as well. And I'm sure you've recognized it as well, because, you know, he played a very, very effective role on a political level. And you mentioned to me before we got on that even the grandson of Nelson Mandela, Mandla Mandela, had actually contacted you from Turkey as well, trying to obviously make his way to the funeral of Ismail Haniyeh. Now, this is the honor, this is the respect that Ismail Haniyeh, you know, had enjoyed even in South Africa.
Yes, undoubtedly so. You know, the aura of dignity, of humility, it just comes onto you. And I think what Professor Nidal mentioned earlier is something that many of us in that room, when we met with Shahid Ismail Haniyeh, we didn't understand about the issue of martyrdom, that the Palestinians understood it in that way. And I bring this up because there was a question that was put that what about your families that are in Gaza? You know, Hamas took a policy that and Ismail Haniyeh mentioned it himself, that every child, every woman is our child, our mothers in Gaza, and that deaths affect us all. So we are not allowed to take away only the families of Hamas. And that sort of filtered down to the room, and I could hear a murmur of amazement that such sacrifice for your family to go through is almost unimaginable. Only the Palestinians who are going through such sacrifices will understand. And this, you know, when Mandla Mandela came into the room, we had the occasion to be, the two of us, with a good hour with Ismail Haniyeh, understanding our sacrifices that we went through, encouraging him. And in fact, it was the opposite that happened, that, you know, as again the professor mentioned, that victory is certain. It is already victorious. But we have to understand something, that it is Zionism that is the biggest problem. And this is what I think the message must go through the South African government, that it's not a one-state or a two-state solution. The problem is the ideology of Zionism. And this is what many people fail to understand that until and unless we dismantle Zionism, that cancer will remain in the Middle East, and that Zionism is really adequately and clearly manifested by the leadership not only of the Americans, but it is the racist colonial entities of the United States and the West and the Canadians and the Australians, all settler colonial states. And this is what I came back fully, clearly understanding, that the conflict is nothing to do with one state, two state solution, but it is the evil poison of Zionism. And this is what I understood when I came back, that the battle of the Palestinian people is not a battle only of the Palestinians, but they represent all the oppressed throughout the world.
Well, certainly, and also, Sister Lina, just to bring you back into the discussion, in the point that Dr. Firoz Osman had made, is it is only the Palestinians who have suffered, who obviously at this point in time, who have sacrificed as well, will understand or will truly even appreciate this great sacrifice that Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh has made. And I'm sure where you are in your part of the world, and there are many, many Palestinians in your part of the world, and just to understand, what was the reaction, what was the mood like with the people that generally in and around in Jordan.
Yeah, like Professor Nidal mentioned, there's two sides to it, because on the one side, the fact that, Zionism continues to assassinate Palestinians is something very sad. But on the other side, we see martyrdom as a great honor. And so it's kind of like what his son said in an interview. Abdusalam, his son, was mentioning how, as a Palestinian, Palestinians are used to getting that call that your father or your family member was killed by Israel. So he was saying, for me, I'm just like any Palestinian who received that call that my father was killed or was murdered. And so the fact that they are so modest and that they consider themselves like any Palestinian, and the fact that they really put the spotlight back on, the 40,000 plus who were killed in Gaza by Israel. Like, this is a struggle that's more than one person. It's really, like Ghassan Kanafani once said, that bodies may fall, but the idea will never fall. And so, although it is sad, and there was a sad mood, at the same time, we understand that he's in a better place, that God bestowed him this honor. And there will be many other martyrs in the future who will fight for Palestine. And I think it will all lead to victory. It'll all lead to liberation. And so in reality, it's not really that sad of an occasion. It's really something that can fuel us. And I think what we can use this moment is to really spotlight who Ismail Haniyeh was. His family was originally from Asqalan, which is in modern day Israel. They were refugees that moved to Gaza, just like thousands of Palestinians. He grew up in a refugee camp, again, like hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, not only in Palestine, but in the diaspora as well. And so he grew up carrying this torch, carrying this idea that I don't want to be oppressed. I don't want to be under this brutal colonization that's been going on. And so if we look at him as a Palestinian, really, he tells the story of millions of Palestinians. And I think that's really what we need to focus on, and really focus on his legacy of, he really had such a great role in trying to reconcile the different Palestinian factions, this idea of internationalism and trying to make ties globally. He kind of reminds me of the national liberation movement in Algeria. They were very politically savvy. They were very smart in making strategical ties. And all of this paved the way to their liberation in Algeria. And I think that he has had a huge role also in training those under him as well in the Hamas movement. We've seen how much it's really developed and how much advancements have been happening with them in terms of really gaining global, we see such a global shift in the way people perceive Hamas and the way people perceive the Palestinian struggle because of how intelligent and how planned everything they do is. And obviously he has a great role in that. And so I think we should take this moment to really focus on him as a Palestinian in reflecting every Palestinian struggle.
Well, certainly, and I think very, very profound in terms of what Lina is talking about, in terms of how Professor Nidal, how we see Dr. Ismail Haniyeh, and how do we see his martyrdom against the struggle. And the Palestinians have lived through this, where in the past they've seen many of the leaders, and they've risen, and they will continue rising as well. But also at the same time, when one looks at the reaction that is coming through from around the world. And we see that, we've seen even some very, very prominent people, even out of Pakistan as well. And I'd just like to share this, where Mufti Muhammad Taqi Usmani speaks about the assassination in Iran of Ismail Haniyeh, head of Hamas movement, is one of the most heinous crimes committed by Israel. Our brother and beloved Ismail Haniyeh gave his life in order to be martyred for the sake of Allah. May Allah take revenge on Israel and support Hamas and make it victorious, stronger, more resistant, and more humiliating to Israel. And may Allah elevate the status of the martyr in the gardens of bliss. Ameen. And this is very, very important to understand, because when one looks at Israel and how this Zionist entity has been exposed, and even this with the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, at the end of the day, we find that this is a regime that is being humiliated. And this is the way I suppose many people are actually looking at it, because this is not a victory. This is a loss. This is humiliation for those that carried out this heinous crime. Professor Nidal?
Yes. Brother Anat, I agree with you, but we have to put this in perspective. First of all, this operation was not carried by Israel. We have to be clear about this. Or at least has not been carried by Israel single-handedly. We know from the news coming out that this attack or missile has been launched from a neighboring country, where we know all the neighboring countries to Iran actually are full of U.S. bases, not Israeli bases, U.S. bases. The ammunition or the weapon that was launched actually is U.S. made, even whether it's a missile, whether it's launched from a base or it was launched from F-35. F-35 is a U.S. airplane or U.S. made airplane. So this is 100, and at least, of course, the intelligence, we know that all the intelligence that's provided, the very advanced intelligence that's needed for such operation was also provided by the United States. So we should stop blaming Israel for actions that she cannot carry by herself. And we need to put things in perspective. And the U.S., as long as the U.S. is getting away without paying the price for its crimes, we're just going to keep blaming basically somebody who doesn't have the capability or the means to carry such crimes. We have, alhamdulillah, lots of Muslims all over the world, in the region, and even here in the U.S. and so forth. But we express our anger in, I believe, in less than effective way. If the U.S. finds that there is a very heavy price to pay for its involvement in all of these crimes and in enabling and sometimes even conspiring in these crimes, we will be able to, put a price on all of this and to show that, the Muslim blood is not free, is not cheap, and the consequences are very grave. I don't know if you can hear me or I lost the connection. Yes. Okay. So basically, I think we need as we, of course, we all feel sorry for ourselves. We don't feel sorry for Brother Ismail Haniyeh, because he got his ultimate wish, and inshallah he's in much better place and much better company. But we feel sorry for ourselves, feeling helpless and feeling sometimes sad and heartened and everything else. But we need to learn how to channel that energy into a prize for those oppressors and aggressors, to deter them from doing what they're doing. We know that victory is certain, alhamdulillah. We know that Palestine is coming back to us. We know, inshallah, that Al-Aqsa is going to be liberated in a matter of time. We know that the blood that we shed is the price that we have to pay for freedom. We know all that. We have no confusion about whatsoever. We have no doubt about it. I can see Al-Aqsa free. I've been seeing it like for over 10, 11 years right now. And inshallah, it's going to be like sooner than most people expect. But there is a price to be paid, and we are paying the price, and we are paying the price wholeheartedly. And I think the sincere in this ummah, they all wish to be in the shoes of Ismail Haniyeh today. But at the same time, like we need to do our own type of jihad. Ismail Haniyeh, just to give you like some good news, I don't know if there's such a thing. Hamas is not just like a group that's random, that's based on one or two personalities. I've worked with Hamas since they started the government, and actually before its inception. And there is so much, alhamdulillah, I mean, so many very competent, skilled, specialized leaders, even though Ismail was carrying the political bureau or the head of the political bureau. But there is so many amazing brothers in the political bureau who are very experienced now, and they're very skilled, and they've been involved in so many negotiations before and so forth. So I'm not worried about Hamas and about the competence of Hamas leadership. And, as we know from experience, that every time they kill a leader, alhamdulillah, Allah bless us with another one who's more fierce on them. So the future is looking good. We just need to do our part as a Muslim Ummah, wherever we are. And I think instead of targeting like a very minority that's most hated around the world, we need to steer our anger and our wrath on those who enable them.
Jazakallah for that, Professor Nidal. Dr. Firoz, just to continue and looking at Ismail Haniyeh now, Ismail Haniyeh showed high concern not only for the Palestinians, but for the Muslim Ummah at large. And I'm sure that featured very, very prominently. And, we speak about the Al-Aqsa flood. And that Al-Aqsa flood was not only about the Palestinian cause, it was a cause for the Muslim Ummah. And this is how strongly he felt about the well-being of the Muslim Ummah. And to the extent that even with the Arab states, and he made it very, very clear in a statement where he told them, he says, all the agreements of normalization that you Arab states have signed with Israel will not end this conflict. And he had the foresight, but also at the same time, he had the courage, and he was bold enough to actually make the statement, because he realized that there is a bigger picture here. There is a lot more than just a Palestinian cause. It is an ummah that is under threat.
I think that message came across to all of us that were sitting in that room at that time. As I mentioned, that there must have been about 15 or 20 countries being represented that. And he actually emphasized the fact that, the struggle of the Palestinian people is representing the entire ummah. What he did emphasize on was the unity of the ummah. And I think, in his wisdom, and that, shone out to all of us, because some of us were concerned about the differences between the Palestinian groups. And one even mentioned that why is it that, the Palestinians are unable to unite. But we fail to see the enemies that act to create these divisions amongst the ummah. And in his wisdom, Ismail Haniyeh made it very clear that it is an emphasis that he would like, not only amongst the Palestinians, but also the ummah at large, because Al-Aqsa is representative of the entire ummah. That, we understand that for Israel, without Jerusalem being the capital, there is no Israel. And without what they call the Temple Mount, the temple that they want to build, the Temple of Solomon, in Jerusalem, there will be no Jerusalem. So for us, it's pivotal for us to understand that Al-Aqsa is very important for all of us as an ummah. But also, we must not forget that they do represent the oppressed of the world, because it is an anti-settler colonialist struggle that is taking place here. Not only the Americans, they came in a little later, but it is the British. And it is the British, the Germans, the Italians, and the Americans that are continuing to supply all the armaments and all the intelligence technology to the Zionists. And we can see the failure, because I believe there are more than 1 million that have already fled from that area. And as long as the Palestinians struggle, and as long as the Ummah remains aware of the Palestinian struggle, and we give all our support to them, victory will come in against not only the Israelis, but against the Western world as a whole. We must remember that if you think about the Western world, the white Western world, they comprise only of about 10 to 15% of the entire world. So the rest of the world, 85%, are the black and brown people who are clearly support the Palestinians in their struggle against the white settler colonial world.
Jazakallah for that, Dr. Firoz. We're going to put all our guests on hold. I'm just going to go for a quick ad break and we'll be back.
Fascinating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Valley's Motor Spares. We supply motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, buckies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name, Valley's Motor Spares.
Kids these days are smart, and when you're competing for their attention against their smartphones, you need to make smart choices, like using Sunfoil triple refined pure sunflower oil in every meal you make. It's naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether you're cooking, frying, or baking, you get the great tasting results that'll get their attention faster than the latest app. And if that doesn't work, change the Wi-Fi password. Sunfoil. Now we're cooking.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists, with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities, conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities. Your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041-583-6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
The people of Palestine need your support now. Africa Muslims Agency is on the ground, already providing food, medication, and emergency supplies in Gaza. Donate any amount to Heal Palestine at africamuslimsagency.co.za. Africa Muslims Agency, empowering, educating, inspiring.
Yasin Badat Financial Advisory. Are your financial goals feeling out of reach? Yasin Badat Financial Advisory is here to turn your aspirations into achievements. Our dedicated team, armed with a history of success, is ready to guide you through the complex nature of financial and investment planning. Whether you're a seasoned investor or new to the game, our personalized solutions cater to your unique goals and risk appetite. Trust in our commitment to transparency, integrity, and excellence. Ready to unlock a world of financial freedom? Partner with us today. Call Yasin Badat Financial Advisory at +27 33 346 2071 or visit www.yasinbadat.com. Yasin Badat Financial Advisory, guiding you to financial success.
Are you planning a wedding, birthday party, corporate event, or any special occasion? Kaniz Catering Services got you covered. Our catering services are here to elevate your event to unforgettable heights. From tantalizing appetizers to mouth-watering main courses and desserts, our culinary creations are crafted with passion and precision to delight your guests' taste buds. Our spit braai is a talk of the town. Indulge in succulent, tender meats, slow roasted to perfection over an open flame. Kaniz Catering Services chefs bring creativity and expertise to every dish they prepare, ensuring that each bite is a culinary masterpiece. We take care of your guests while you relax and enjoy every moment of your function. Whether it's plated meals to a simple buffet, we are on top of it all. Ready to start planning your perfect event? Get in touch with us today to discuss your catering needs and request a personalized quote. Let us take your event to the next level with our exceptional catering services. Kaniz Catering Services, situated at number 373 Jabun Lovo Street, Pietermaritzburg. Call now 033 342 3511 or email us on info@kaniz.co.za for Pietermaritzburg and surrounding areas only. Visit www.kaniz.co.za.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
Well, we continue with our broadcast this evening in the company of our guests, Dr. Firoz Osman, Sister Lina Abujari, and Professor Nidal Sakar, as we focus on the life of this great martyr, Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh. And Lina, just to continue with the broadcast and just to look at Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh, and as Professor Nidal alluded to, he obviously was in the company of the founder of Hamas, Sheikh Ahmed Yassin. He learned a lot from him, and at the same time, he looked upon Sheikh Ahmed Yassin as a role model as well. And in his own words, he said that he learned from him to love Islam, to sacrifice for it, and not to bow before tyrants or even tyranny as well. And I'm sure for the people of Palestine to look up to Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh as a role model, and I'm sure many young Palestinians in particular are inspired by his life, but at the same time they're inspired by this ending, by the martyrdom that he's achieved as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, there really was a lack of attention on educating our young generation. Like if I were to ask one of the students I teach 5 years ago, do you know what Hamdallah represents? Do you know who Ahmed Yassin is? Do you know who Yahya Ayyash is? They might have not have known. And, because generation after generations, the parents kind of maybe forget, or they don't really focus on this aspect. But I think with Al-Aqsa flood, what Al-Qassam, what Hamas has been able to do is really revive the Palestinian cause among the youth, which is something amazing. So today, if I ask, a young child, who do you consider a superhero? They would all choose, for example, Abu Ubaidah. They would all draw Abu Ubaidah, or they would choose Ismail Haniyeh, or now they're more familiar of stories of Al-Rantisi, of Ahmed Yassin, and so this is something that's amazing. They actually know the stories of the different martyrs from the videos that Al-Qassam is sharing, and so I think social media has had a really big role in that. And I think that's really important. So just like my mom told me stories of Yahya Ayyash, and that's what inspired me to study engineering, and that's what really inspires my Palestinian art, I'll be telling my daughter about Ismail Haniyeh. And so it's generation after generation, we're passing on the torch, of these amazing figures that really refuse to be weak in the face of this colonial occupation project. And I think it doesn't only inspire Palestinians, it doesn't only inspire Muslims. Of course, it has a huge role in inspiring Muslims, because this is really the first time that we see Muslim heroes standing up for Muslims. It's the first time we see Muslims in a position of power, in a position where they're resisting, where they're not only the victims. And so of course it inspires Muslims all over the world, but it also inspires any people who are kind of marginalized, Native Americans, Black Americans, brown people all around the world. we're finally seeing that, we don't always have to be casualties or collateral damage. We don't always have to be the victims. We can fight back and we can win. So like, I consider what Hamas is doing, what Al-Qassam is doing, they've already gained a victory, a huge military, political victory over Israel. So this is kind of what Ismail Haniyeh represents to the youth here.
Shukran for that, Lena. Professor Nidal, just looking at the unity of the Palestinians now. We heard last week, we've seen China obviously trying to bring the different factions together to unite the Palestinians. But this martyrdom, this assassination, I'm sure has actually brought the Palestinians closer than ever before, brought them closer together.
Brother, Palestinians have always been together. Al-Aqsa flood brought them together. And we see what's happening right now in the West Bank, where Hamas right now is basically the only representative to the Palestinian people. I do appreciate all the unity efforts that Brother Ismail Haniyeh and his comrades that trying to do to unite the Palestinian ranks. Palestinian ranks are united. The Palestinian people are all united against those who are following the lead of those normalizing, bunch, this Palestinian Authority, Abbas and his gang, or the Arab regimes, because those people, like, they already sold out long ago to the hegemony of the Americans and the Israelis for their own personal interests. Haniyeh, by insisting on the Palestinian unity, is trying to set an example, which is the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where even though that you might know that there are hypocrites, even though that you know that we have the enemy within, but you set it as an example to try to avoid fitna and division among Muslims. Today, the martyrdom of Ismail Haniyeh is celebrated throughout Palestine, regardless of the ranks. I mean, you have the people from Fatah or any group who have been steadfast in terms of the liberation of Palestine. They all looked at Haniyeh as their leader. Today, the situation is much better than ever before. We know that a good part of Ismail Haniyeh's training was in Marj al-Zuhur, where a few hundred Palestinians were exiled, including Sheikh Ahmed Yassin and so forth. And they spent almost like a year together, getting like crash course in Islamic, education, characters, manners, how to manage the battle, and how to stand for the cause. Well, now we have in Palestine, in the Al-Aqsa flood, in all the genocide that we see in Gaza, alhamdulillah, everywhere you go in Gaza, we have now schools for memorizing Quran, and very much copying the model of Marj al-Zuhur, but on local places where very much most of the Palestinian children right now are following suit. The same thing we see also in the West Bank. So the blood of Ismail Haniyeh is not going in vain, just like the blood of all the martyrs before him have not gone in vain. And the martyrs after Ismail, inshallah, is not going to go in vain. It's a price we have to pay for victory, but I'm still I'm so shocked. How can Muslims accept or condone or be passive about the enemies within? The enemies within are not only the Americans and the Israelis that are now deep-rooted in every Muslim society, especially in the Middle East, but also in the American US bases that are being just spreading everywhere. Jordan, I think, has 12 of them already. So is every Arab country in the Middle East. And we know that the attacks that has taken place to kill Ismail Haniyeh and in defending Israel are all taking place from Arab Muslim land now. It's no longer coming out of Israel. So Muslim people, they really need to wake up and rise up to the occasion. No matter what, those Arab regimes are not as formidable and as strong or powerful or almighty as the Israeli regime, for example. But still, Palestinians, they didn't think twice before rising against the oppressors. I think we need to rise against the oppressor wherever they are, the Zionists, wherever their name might be. And just unite with give victory to our brothers in Palestine, do our role. There is no excuse whatsoever wherever we live in the face of this world, of this earth, that we don't do our part in giving victory, and victory by basically putting our life on the line in doing everything that we can, just like the encampments we had here, just like the people protesting all over the West. We need to do our part in making sure that there is no Israeli embassy or US embassy in any Muslim country, let alone the military bases where these attacks are taking place from.
Yes, Professor Nidal, and also Dr. Firoz, just following up from what Professor Nidal is saying is, and again, I'd like to refer to what Ismail Haniyeh had to say, that, and this is a message that went out to the Arab world, saying that, Israel, which cannot protect itself in the face of resistors, could not provide protection for other Arab countries, and that all the normalization agreements that you signed with that entity cannot resolve the conflict. And in one of his final communications, he called on now 3 days from now, on August the 3rd, where he declared for an international day of action for Gaza and Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. And his statement was, we hope that the 3rd of August will be a pivotal, significant, and impactful day across all of Palestine, in refugee camps and the diaspora, in our Arab and Islamic world, and among all the free people right across the entire world, to support the people of Gaza and free prisoners in Israel's occupation jails. Now, this was one of the last communications that he issued 3 days from now, that day that he declared an international day of action, that we hope and we pray that this day will actually take place. Sadly, obviously, his funeral will be taking place as well. But this is the wisdom, this is the foresight of the man, Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh.
He was a visionary par excellence. I think that is clear, but also great deal of wisdom. Professor Sakar has said very clearly that we need to call out the enemies from within the Ummah as well. We've had many protests at the American embassy, but where are the protests against the collaborators? And what confuses me sometimes is that the so-called ambassador here in South Africa is invited when we know about their collaboration with the Zionists. So I think we still have a long way to go to educate our people about what the struggle and the sacrifice is of Islamic Jihad, of Hamas, and of other groups such as Hezbollah and Ansarullah and so on. I think what I gleaned from Ismail Haniyeh's wisdom is that we should be united in a common cause. And I think perhaps we in South Africa make a mistake on preying on our minute differences between the different sects. But we can see from the wisdom of the Islamic leadership of Hamas and Islamic Jihad that there is a greater cause to be fought. And I think, perhaps it's Zionism as an offshoot of settler colonialism, as an offshoot of imperialism. They are the true enemies. And really, we need to educate our communities here that, those who collaborate with the Zionists need to be ostracized. And there is no debate about that.
Yes, Sister Lina, you are in Jordan, and obviously, right next door as well. And I just want to talk a bit about, from what Dr. Firoz Osman is saying. And I see Maulana Abdul Khalik Ali has joined us as well. Maulana, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and our greetings to the entire panel.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yes, Jazakallah, we will come to you, Maulana, just now for your reaction on the martyrdom of the great Sheikh Ahmed Yassin. But Sister Lina, just to continue with you, and just looking at it, from looking at it in Jordan, and perhaps the sentiments may be the same in many of the other neighboring countries, particularly on the ground. And we're not talking about the government, because obviously, that is another discussion as far as the governments are concerned, and to what extent these governments have actually supported or not supported the Palestinian cause, how much damage, how much harm they may have done to the Palestinian cause as well. But just looking at it, on the ground, I am certain that this martyrdom is not going to be in vain, as Professor Nidal Sakar mentioned. His blood was not spilled in vain. And I'm sure that inspiration is one issue, but at the end of the day, in truly understanding what the struggle is all about. And that is going to take the struggle to another level.
Yeah, of course. And that's why I'm saying we should take this as an opportunity to educate ourselves more about Palestinian suffering in general. Like, for example, just today, Ismail Al-Ghul, who is a Al Jazeera correspondent, was standing outside of Ismail Haniyeh's destroyed house, kind of, giving, talking about Ismail Haniyeh and kind of giving a tribute to him. And he was targeted by the Israeli military and killed and murdered, in plain view. And so, this is what this brutal occupation colonization project does. They want to kind of snuff out our hope. They want to make us suffer, or kind of show us that, no matter what you do, there's no hope. But of course, as Palestinians, we always have hope. Our will is never going to be broken. The difference between us and the difference between them is we're not afraid of death, because we seek martyrdom, and that's a huge privilege for us. And so they're really fighting an enemy that can never be defeated, in a sense. And it makes me very sad to be living in a country where there are US military bases, where we know that, Israel is being supplied food and different supplies by certain Arab countries. This makes me extremely sad. But in reality, there's a saying that says the people of Gaza are the only free people in the entire Middle East, because we're all controlled by these governments that are really propped up by the West, by the United States. And I think the liberation of Palestine will come. I'm not sure what will come first, but I do believe that Arabs and Muslims need to kind of awaken and need to also liberate themselves. Maybe we'll be inspired by the resistance in Gaza, by the Palestinian people, but we're all in a sense under occupation. We're all in a sense not free. And I think the only free people are the people in Gaza, the people in Palestine who are resisting. And so this is what gives us hope. This is what really, I think, will make a huge difference moving forward, and will create a generation that will create change in their respective countries. And so, like, my husband is from Gaza. My child is going to be considered a Ghazawi. And this comes with so many different difficulties. And I think Arab countries make it a point to make life difficult for people from Gaza, because they know how strong they are. But for me, this is really a badge of honor. And I think anyone from Gaza really should be so proud to be holding this burden. They're literally holding the burden, and really are the shield, the last shield for Islam, for Muslims everywhere, standing up for not just themselves, but for all oppressed people. So this is something much bigger than one person.
Well, definitely, Sister Nida, and I think Professor Nidal in a previous discussion made this point when early on October the 7th has taken place, and Professor Nidal has always held this view that Gaza will obviously change this world, and definitely we see it right across the entire world. Maulana Abdul Khalik Ali, assalamu alaikum once again, and jazakallah for joining us now. Maulana, I just needed your reaction. And obviously, when we look at Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh, rahimahullah, he was not only a political leader, he was not only a mujahid, but he was a true scholar of Islam as well. And I'm sure, coming from the scholarly fraternity, earlier on, I seen the reaction come from Mufti Taqi Uthmani out of Pakistan as well. And I've seen the United Ulama Council of South Africa also issue a statement as well with regard to a press release in terms of our reaction, in terms of our disgust at the cowardice and in the cowardly manner that Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh was assassinated and martyred, and just to talk about your reflections and your thoughts on this assassination that has taken place.
Yeah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Jazakumullah to Salam Media for this wonderful opportunity to speak about one of the world's greatest leaders that we have witnessed being martyred today. And he comes out of the Jamia, out of the university, out of a very special university and institution, that being the institution of Sheikh Ahmad Yasin, Rahmatullah alayh, wherein these men have been taught the prophetic teachings and the lessons of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam of bravery and courageousness and steadfastness and resistance upon resistance and instilling fear in the enemy, and where they have graduated from with beautiful akhlaq and character, where they have graduated from an institution that has taught them that the Quran is the essence for their development. And I remember back in 9/11 and how Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh at the time, subhanallah, he instituted the program of Tahfidh al-Quran in Gaza. Allahu Akbar wa lillahi alhamd, to say, Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidhun, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees that the glorious Quran, when Allah has revealed it, it becomes the means of how Allah will protect a people. Allah will protect the Quran. And so whoever is attached with the Quran will be protected. But the spirit of jihad and the spirit of wanting to give the life, Allahu Akbar, is phenomenal. It is something, and our honorable sister I heard speaking, saying in terms of this very special quality or a special type of a person that the people, the Palestinian people are. And perhaps it relates back to the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he says, "La tazalu ta'ifatu min ummati zahirina ala al-haq." There shall always be a people who shall remain firm and steadfast on truth and on haqq. And the betrayal of a people in a nation is not going to weaken them. They will remain steadfast. And this is what we see. Allahu Akbar wa lillahi alhamd. The amount of negotiations that Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh and his team has entered into and not succumbed to any of those conditions that the Zionists has laid down. And despite the fact, seeing the demolishment, the destruction, the killing, the murder, the massacres, the genocide, Allahu Akbar wa lillahi alhamd, and he carries with him, subhanallah, the spirit of the people of Gaza. And our honorable sister is from Gaza, subhanallah. And yes, that is an undying spirit. Maulana Hassan, rahmatullah alayhi, our great leader, used to say, they can kill the body, but they can never kill the spirit of life that Allah has blessed the people of Gaza with. And so I am extremely grateful that Allah has blessed us to be in a country where we can be able to express ourselves, in a country where we make it absolutely clear that Hamas is a liberation movement. It is a struggle for their freedom, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed them with this particular status. We live in a country where we can be able to argue against those particular individuals that wanting to claim that Hamas is a terrorist organization and Ismail Haniyeh, rahmatullah alayhi, al-Shaheed, is a terrorist. We can be able to stand boldly and be able to say, because we come from a movement, the African National Congress, that is a liberation movement, that be able to understand the importance of the liberation struggle for our freedom in our country. Likewise, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, our people in Gaza, our people in Palestine, the people in the West Bank, we salute them, we compliment them, and we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala must accept the shuhada Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala must give strength to the mothers who are rearing the nations, who are rearing people that and sons and daughters who is ready to take up this next generation of struggle against this apartheid Zionist Israeli state. And victory is near, inshallah al-Aziz. And we believe that, because ultimately there is only failure for these particular systems, as Allah declares for us in the Holy Quran, وَقُلْ جَاءَ الْحَقُّ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلُ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا. It is bound to perish, and that is what is going to be happening with the Zionism. And so yes, Allahu Akbar, whilst the heart is saddened and the tears are flowing, we are encouraged by the determination of Al-Qaid, Ustad Sheikh Hafidh Al-Shayeed Ismail Haniyeh, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept his shahada. He is obviously with his family, and ma'an nabiyyin, with Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam, Siddiqeen wa shuhada'i wa salihin. He is in a company of Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala, and in a company of our beloved Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Jazakallah khairan so much for that, Maulana. And clearly, Professor Nidar, from what Maulana is saying, again, we're talking of generation after generation. But there's just so much hope that we have. There is always that silver lining at the end of that dark cloud.
Yes, brother. We don't have hope. We have certainty. Alhamdulillah. We trust in the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so we don't have any doubt whatsoever. And of course, hope comes with the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just like I said, we must always make sure to keep things in perspective so we can see the entire picture. Remember that, first of all, that Al-Aqsa flood was a strike not against Israel. Actually, it was the whole US imperialist, colonialist project in the region. That's why the first ones to counter it was alliance between the Arabic regimes, Israel and the US, and we know that the Arab regimes are the ones who insisted, as Blinken said, insisted on carrying this genocide in Gaza, and they funded that genocide, and they were the ones to provide the lifeline through that bridge that goes all the way from Dubai, all the way through Saudi Arabia, Jordan, into Palestine, to provide the food and to compensate for all of this Gaza envelope food production and to keep Israel surviving. Then we had UAE as the one trying to lead this the next day or the day after kind of like arrangement, making sure that all the goals, and let's just be clear about this, all the goals Netanyahu has stated as the terms or the objectives of this war actually are the Arab regimes, the normalizing Arab regimes. Goals are not even actually the US and Israeli as much as they are the desires of those regimes to basically annihilate the people of Gaza and eliminate Hamas as well. The timing right now, we know that there was a meeting in Manama in Bahrain a couple of months ago where it was actually led by the Israeli chief in command and the US, and with the participation of 5 Arab militaries, including Jordan, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Egypt, and Morocco, actually, for the very same thing. Like, we have to eliminate Hamas and destroy Hamas and the leadership and so forth. Well, now they've been talking about the next day. Israel has realized that Hamas cannot be defeated and so forth. So now what are they talking? They've been talking about who they're going to have in control of Gaza after the elimination of Hamas. And there was the latest meeting that just took place in Dubai, where actually or in UAE, where they're talking about Salam Fayyad as to come as supposedly the leader of the Palestinian government in Gaza. Well, guess what? They know that with Hamas and Ismail Haniyeh, who is the #1 figure in Palestine right now in terms of popularity and constituency and so forth, that they had to eliminate any competition to that Salam Fayyad. So that's why they chose actually to go after Ismail Haniyeh at the timing that they did, because they want to pave the way for this new government supposedly take over Gaza after they destroy Gaza and supposedly Hamas was going to agree to another Palestinian unity government to take place. So basically, like, we have to keep in mind that whatever is happening, including the elimination of brother Ismail Haniyeh, this is an Arab goal. This is basically not only endorsed, it's actually, I guarantee you, as the news is going to be coming and the investigations are going to be revealing what's happening, that this was actually a demand by those Arab regimes for a long time of eliminating the leadership of Hamas. So they think that this way they can get rid of the headache that Hamas represents in terms of its popularity and constituency in the Arab streets and the pressure that they've been representing or they've been putting on their regimes. So Ismail Haniyeh, alhamdulillah, now is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the Sheikh has said, in a better place, in a better company. But little do they know that there are so many leaders in line in Hamas, inshallah, that they're going to be no less than Ismail Haniyeh, as a matter of fact. And time is going to come. We're going to remember, like, you know what, you thought that Ismail Haniyeh is headache. Well, wait till you see the ones that are coming after him, that they're going to be, inshallah, much more headache to you, much more skilled, much more competent, much more capable. And they're going to stand in the same line, following the same goals, the same objectives, until, inshallah, all Palestine and Al-Aqsa is free.
Inshallah, Ameen, Allahu Akbar. Really, Professor Nidal, just very, very encouraging coming this from you as well. And I see, Dr. Firoz, you were nodding your head when Professor Nidal was talking. And I'm sure, you've got a comment or two.
There is no doubt that the collaboration between some of the Arab regimes with Israel, I'm certain we are going to see, because I see the demise of Israel coming very close. And together, as they sink into the desert sands, so are the leadership of the Saudis, the Egyptians, the Jordanians, the Bahrainis, and the Emiratis are going to sink with them. Their lifeline is Israel. They are propping up these regimes. And of course, the Palestinian Authority depends on the finance and continuing to be the surrogates of the Zionist regime. So all of them are going to sink into the desert sand. And I'm surprised that they cannot see it. But many of the Zionists that are fleeing Israel are seeing the end is coming near. But not only the end of Israel, it is going to be the end of all those illegitimate, unelected leaders that are being propped up by the Zionists and the Americans. So it is a victory for Hamas, not for the Palestinians only, but for all the anti-colonial, settler colonial movements throughout the world. And I think it is coming near, inshallah.
Yes. Maulana, just looking at the reaction coming through in South Africa as well, and I've seen a number of posts coming through as well, where people have clearly taken the martyrdom of Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh, rahimahullah, very, very close to heart. We've even seen that some masajids, there are certain areas as well that have now called for the Janazah Salah of Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh to be recited in absentia as well. And this is how close the Ummah has been with regards to the Palestinians, the Palestinian cause in South Africa. And, looking at it from your side, looking at it from the Al-Quds Foundation and all the other Palestinian solidarity movements in the country, the struggle that continues. And alhamdulillah, all of us and many of us have enjoyed this very, very close association with Hamas over the years. We had that global conference that took place in South Africa as well. And we've seen the reaction, we've seen the level of support, not only from the Muslim community, but from right across the entire world, the political spectrum, all of that. And I see, I will read out the comments in a minute or two, but just your comment, and for us here in South Africa, what should we be taking away from this martyrdom?
So instantly, obviously, as the statements are flowing from the various organizations, and South Africans are responding by extending the talk and the discussion It is not only to be taken to our salah rooms and on our musallas, but rather to bring it alive within all spheres of community and society. And that is what we witness, and that should be the line of action as well, besides our private moments that we speak and engage with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Having said that, we know the fact that the Qadiyatul Quds is the Qadiyatul Ummah. Sheikh Dr. Yusuf Qardawi, he clearly expounds upon that when he speaks about this being the responsibility of the entire Ummah. It is an amana that Allah has placed upon our shoulders. It is being carried out by our Palestinian brothers and our sisters, by the elderly and the seniors, and the mothers and the women. It is being carried out by the mujahideen who are representing us, and we know that they are fulfilling an enormous responsibility. The human cost, obviously, it's great upon them, and they face that particular extent of brutality at the hands of a Zionist beast that has declared them to be an animal. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. But having said that, the fact of the matter is that it is our duty and responsibility to give recognition to each and every single Palestinian who are standing up for the cause of justice, for their freedom, for the protection and preservation of Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa Al-Mubarak, and to say, and I agree with our honorable doctor when he said earlier, you see, we are finding ourselves in a state, and as Mufti Taqi Uthmani, as he referred earlier on, he made a comment last week sometime when he said that if we are not going to stand up against this particular Zionist entity, we are not going to be breaking the shackles of slavery. So we are finding ourselves in that particular state of being enslaved by this Western hegemony. And so it is a Palestinian people that is standing up against imperialism, against Western hegemony, against the colonial forces of the world. And subhanallah, we see, how can we imagine for 10 months the people in Gaza and in the West Bank, they are pushed and shoved around from one corner to another corner in Gaza. And they come and arrive at the point of a safe haven. And those particular safe havens are now bombarded because the Zionists, because they are based upon lies, and they create their own lies and saying that there is probably a Hamas leader there, and they bombard innocent people. That has been the systematic killing and murder of the Palestinians over the past many decades. Ya subhanallah, and the steadfastness of our Palestinian people. And therefore, when we call upon the Salatul Ghaib, and when we call for Khatm al-Quran, in fact, I step in a bit late. Our masjid here, Masjid al-Nur, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, we just finished the recitation of Surah Yasin, and we were able to expound upon the life of this Shaheed Al-Qaid, Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, and the others, subhanallah. And rightfully, as somebody has pointed out, another Ismail must martyr today. Allahu Akbar. One of the brothers in the masjid reminded me, a journalist, ya subhanallah. And the journalist must rise in South Africa. Let it be led from here. And let me say, Haji Inayat, whilst we are at it and we're talking about women, tomorrow, for our special foreign guest, the 1st of August is the start of Women Month in South Africa. And on the 9th of August, coinciding obviously on the Yom al-Jumu'ah, is a National Women's Day. And let me say, Mubarak to the women in South Africa. Our mothers and our sisters in our country, they have mobilized a number of Muslim organizations and Muslim female women organizations. They have come together to say they want to turn this Women's Month a true Women's Month for the women in Gaza, and how they can be able to create an opportunity to make the South African government or the Minister of Women and Children, as well as to make an impact on the government to say that the women are suffering. Women, al-mar'a أو تحت الحصار, under the occupation, like our women under the apartheid here. They struggled, but there is a boldness, a courageousness of facing all of those particular challenges. But it should be highlighted, and we hope and pray, inshallah, Aziz, all the success to the women who have put these particular projects together for the month of Women Month in South Africa, inshallah.
Inshallah, Jazakallah, we will follow that. And I see there were one or two messages that came through. And I see Professor Jaf Helper has joined us out of Al-Quds as well. And I just want to read out quickly Mujahideen saying Zionists don't know and don't know evil, everything they do. They see it as correct and legitimate. And there was another message that came through from Sister Shamshad said, no comment that Haniyeh was murdered in Iran and not Turkey or Qatar, where American bases of 50 plus delegates present in Tehran was safe, except Haniyeh was on a secret location sensing a bias. Professor Jeff Helper, we welcome you to the show and wonderful you're able to join us.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, Prof, in your part of the world, in Jerusalem, in Al-Quds, just take us through the reaction to this morning's assassination of Ismail Haniyeh.
Well, in East Jerusalem, in Palestinian East Jerusalem and the West Bank, there's a strike, a general strike, obviously in protest to the assassination. On this side of the Green Line, inside Israel, I'm in West Jerusalem. Of course, it's not celebration. I can't say that. I mean, the commentators on the television set are very concerned. What's going to be the reaction? I think that's what's on people's minds. But I think in terms of the politicians, especially in the right wing of Netanyahu's government, it's not celebratory, but certainly they're very happy that Haniyeh's gone. They feel that that a certain turning point has been made, and I think to say this, I think Israel is in the situation, Zionism, and after 130 years of Zionism, Israel really thinks that it's on the cusp of winning. In other words, unlike South Africa, that wasn't able to finalize its apartheid regime, it was in for a long time, but you were able to roll it back. Israel feels that it has the international support and it has the military strength to actually impose apartheid permanently. And that means, of course, the permanent oppression of the Palestinians. And what it especially means at this moment is the quelling of any pockets of resistance that still exist. So it's not only Gaza, of course, it's Tulkarm and Jenin refugee camps, but it's mainly Hamas because, unfortunately, Fatah has been tamed. It's a part of the Palestinian Authority, which is a collaborationist authority, to our shame, really. But at the same time, I think Hamas being the only resistance movement existing, Israel feels it has to destroy its leadership, destroy its military capacity and political capacity. And then the way is open towards normalization with much of the Arab world.
Yes, in fact, thank you for that, Prof. And in fact, these were just some of the issues that obviously came up during the course of our discussion as well. And I see we've lost Professor Nidal, we've lost Lina as well. But let's get to you, Dr. Firoz Osman. And we know that there is a lot that is being said at this point in time in terms of analysis, in terms of who, how, Iran being in another country, and I think we're going to hear a lot over the next few days until we get certainty. And I think Professor Nidal spoke about it as well, where he said, this obviously came through looking at the number of bases that are in and around Iran as well, so there is every likelihood. But just before we get to you, Dr. Firoz, just a question from you, Professor Jeff Helper. What is officially coming through from the Israeli government in terms of, are they taking any responsibility? Are they saying anything? Because, early on, I believe that things were absolutely quiet and there was no comment coming through.
They haven't taken official responsibility. But everybody knows, and it's all on the Israeli news that's on now. All the commentators are talking about how it was done. It was done with a local spike missile. I mean, they described exactly how it was done. I don't think they've claimed responsibility because, that would open all kinds of Pandora's boxes in terms of international law, international reactions. So Israel doesn't need that. But basically, we're in a situation where everybody knows, and everybody knows the details of how it was done. So there's no doubt about it. But Israel, I don't think, will take, at least at this stage, formal responsibility for it.
Thank you for that, Prof. Yes, Dr. Firoz.
I found Professor Helper, and I'm a great admirer of his writings and research, mentioned about how Israel thinks it's perhaps on the cusp of victory, if I understood that correctly. Yet, when I read some reports, it is economically in dire straits with a lot of IT companies leaving. Nobody wants to invest in it. Militarily, if it wasn't for the United States of America, United Kingdom, Germany, and Italy, it was bereft of any ammunition and arms. And morally, the world knows what Israel is all about now, that it is a monster state, basically losing whatever sympathy it has from the lay people, including the United States of America. And even inside, socially, there's infighting. I think perhaps it's correct to say that Netanyahu is probably the most hated leader that Israel has ever had. So I find it interesting that Israelis would think that they're on nearing victory when so many, according to certain reports, I think it was in the Maariv as well, that nearly a million people have left Israel. So I just feel that, with the support of the entire world for the Palestinians, the non-Western world, I think, Israel is on a losing wicket. And perhaps I'm being too optimistic, but I would like to ask, is it possible that, Israel is nearing its end?
I don't think so. I mean, I wrote a book about this called War Against the People, in which I tried to ask how Israel gets away with this. I think the Israeli people have disconnected. It's very hard to convey this, have disconnected from the Palestinian issue. They live in their bubble inside Israel. It's a good life. It's a normal life. And they really don't care about if it's going to be one state or two states or what happens to Palestinians. All the concern about Gaza and all the demonstrations against Netanyahu have to do with the hostage deal. And now with the idea that soldiers are just dying for no reason because the army says the military part is actually over, and Netanyahu is simply perpetuating this, but it has nothing to do with the Palestinians. I mean, that's really the strange thing about this. The Palestinians are invisible for Israelis. And so in a sense, the fight inside Israel is between the extreme right wing, the settlers that have really taken power, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and these guys, to a large degree with Netanyahu, and most Israelis that aren't into that. But it's an eternal Israeli discussion that has nothing to do with Palestinians. But in the bigger picture, I think the Israeli government sees itself as going through a rough patch. Yeah, there's some economic issues and high tech and so on. But I think their idea is we hang in there. And in the end, and this is what Biden is pushing, there will be a normalization process. As soon as the fighting dies down in Gaza, normalization, especially with Saudi Arabia, we complete the Abraham Accords. Hamas is finished militarily and politically. The Palestinians have been locked into Bantustans, and you know what Bantustans are. And the normalization process then legitimizes internationally Israeli apartheid from the river to the sea. So I think, and then once that's done and the settler colonialism, the apartheid is normalized, internationally. It's true. Israel becomes a pariah state among the people of the world. That's true. I mean, I think the people have really risen up in support of Palestinian rights. But governments don't work that way. And Israel has made itself so useful in terms of its military exports. It's being a surrogate in the Middle East for the United States and NATO, in terms of its surveillance technologies, technologies of repression that it sends to governments all over the world, that I think Israel feels, because that niche it's taken is so important to governments, that it can maintain its international status and support among governments, even if it loses public support among the people. I think that's less concerning to it. So I think you're right. I mean, there certainly are movements going against the Israeli economy, the Israeli society. Certainly it is becoming more isolated. But I think Israel feels that if we can go through this patch, the normalization process will bring us out of it again.
Thank you,
the
Prof.
normalization
Professor Nidal.
is very soon, and that's why I talk about a cusp. I'm sorry.
Yes, Prophet Nidal, as we're getting towards the end of the broadcast, just looking at it where to from here, and obviously this is going to inspire the resistance a lot more, but just how do you see things playing out from here onwards? If you could unmute your mic, please, Prof.
I see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always on charge. So they plotted and Allah plots, and Allah is the best of plotters. I agree absolutely with Professor Halper's assessment of the situation inside the so-called Israel. I have only one thing to say. Professor Harper is the luckiest of all of us for being on the land of Palestine. But hang in there, inshallah, we're going to be joining you all soon in a free Palestine, where inshallah Jerusalem is going to be no longer two parts, south and east. It's going to be one united Jerusalem and one free united Palestine, inshallah. Yes, absolutely. What he mentioned is that there is the Zionist, colonialist, imperialist project in one. And as I've always been saying that, to me, Israel is another coin of Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, or any Arab dictatorship. That's the normalization camp. That's the subjugation that tried to force on us the post-World War II Israelization of the area. Because to me, just like I said, we are all under occupation in the Middle East. Doesn't matter what country we are. Doesn't matter if the name is Netanyahu or Abdullah Netanyahu or bin Salman Netanyahu or bin Zayed Netanyahu or Sisi Netanyahu or so forth. They're all Yahoo for all I'm concerned. And that's exactly the awareness that we have in Gaza. That's exactly the awareness that we have among Palestinians. It's existential war. It's either us or them. It's either freedom, justice, equality, and all of the human rights and values that the world believes in, or is this like little gangs here and there led by the United States? I live in the United States. I was born in the United States, and I'm speaking out from the United States, and I've done this all my life. I know what the United States is all about. The United States is nothing but a parasite nation, is nothing but axis of evil in all and by itself. It's at some point we had the Western European powers throughout the Crusades, throughout World War wars and so forth, and the US came out victorious and most intact after the Second World War to lead the spear of that same long barbarian savage project. That project, inshallah, is coming to an end. Al-Aqsa flood started, and Al-Aqsa flood is not gonna inshallah rest until like we all have one free united Palestine from the river and to the sea, and actually not from the river to the sea, from the ocean or from the Gulf to the ocean, because to me Palestine is not only historical Palestine. Palestine is everywhere where La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah in the Arab countries is. And let me just mention this. Let me just give me 2 minutes. Bin Zayed, Abdullah bin Zayed, which is one of those like Netanyahu's Arab version, the foreign minister of UAE, he was very clear actually at the beginning of Al-Aqsa flood. He said, if Israel falls, we all fall, talking about the Arab regime. So we all know that. There is no illusion about this. yes, Israel is going to fall, and all of these dictators are going to fall, inshallah.
Inshallah. I'm going to go for a quick break. We come back and we will then wind out and just go through the panelists and get final thoughts.
Searching for elite local and international investment and advisory services from an award-winning firm? Look no further than the Belmont Mayer Group, your gateway to unparalleled investment and wealth management. At Belmont Mayer, we believe in the art of wealth creation, a meticulous process fueled by our unwavering commitment to excellence. With a focus on providing elite alternative investments and quality advice, we also pride ourselves on maximizing value for our esteemed investors, as seen through our consistent outperformance. Your financial success is our top priority. Join us at Belmont Mayer and experience the difference firsthand. Ready to embark on a journey of greatness? Contact us today. Reach out to the Belmont Mayer Group on 078 786 1698. Call or WhatsApp or email us at info@belmontmayer.com. Elevate your financial future with Belmont Mayer, where every detail matters.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
After the recent attacks on Gaza, many families have been displaced with their homes left destroyed. Through your donations, our teams are on the ground in Gaza, providing support and delivering necessary aid to families affected. The people of Gaza need your help. Give hope. Donate today to Penny Appeal South Africa. www.pennyappeal.org.za 031 1100 573.
We are here on the ground with many appeal organizations in Gaza.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
Well, we're heading towards closure. We've got about 14 minutes to go before we close off. And this is with our group of panelists this evening against the targeted assassination of Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh. Dr. Firoz Osman, starting with you, just getting some final thoughts, about 2 minutes.
I believe that, the martyrdom of Ismail Haniyeh will not be in vain. The Al-Aqsa flood for the last 10 months has shown that the impunity Israel has enjoyed as an apartheid colonial regime has been exposed to the world for the monstrous ability to create the genocide it has with impunity is no longer a viable option for Israel. Evil generally is not sustainable. We saw the end of apartheid. Maybe it was coming all the time with the BDS movements and so on, but it came rather quickly. And I suspect that the emigration of Jews from the occupied Palestine, it simply marks the beginning of the end, possibly. It may take many years, but no doubt in my mind that the deterrence value that Israel has enjoyed for such a long time is coming to an end. So, the final concluding remark is though the sacrifice of the Palestinians for such a long time, and they've paid a heavy price, that ultimately the fact is that they show that they are not afraid of death, that martyrdom is pleasing to them, and their determination for freedom will bear fruit very soon.
Inshallah. Mullah Abdul Khalik Ali.
Yeah, we must not stop speaking about Gaza. We must not stop speaking about the occupation, and we must not stop speaking about Zionism. And what we witness in the West through the activism of the university students and from the various platforms must further be strengthened and empowered. Here in South Africa, post our elections, we have got an enormous responsibility. As we know that we sit with a new government of national unity, a government that must be engaged, and it requires an intensified campaign on behalf of all sectors of community and society, including the ulama. And let me share with Salam Media and with all of your listeners that last week and Thursday, alhamdulillah, the United Ulama Council of South Africa, whilst we have taken a decision at our board meeting last week and Thursday, we formally established the Palestinian Advocacy Forum on behalf of the United Ulama Council of South Africa. And the mission is that ulama-led mobilization is absolutely essential. It is important. We have to, and our objective is laid out. We have to work in cohesion with others and with others, obviously, and be able to create a broad platform of activism, engage with our government, engage with the various political parties, engage with civil society, and for civil society to remain constant in terms of its vigilance and its mobilization. And the last point, Sheikh Raid Salah would always speak about never take your eye off Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa Al-Mubarak. And during this past month, there has been such a high level of violation by the settlers and the Jewish extremists on Masjid Al-Aqsa Al-Mubarak. And that is the epicenter of this entire struggle. We pray that Allah must preserve and protect Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa Al-Mubarak and give strength to the Palestinian people. They are constantly in our du'as, in our prayers, and we will continue to do so. May Allah make that the martyrdom of Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh, Al-Qaid, the leader, let it be one wherein there are going to be many and hundreds of Ismails that has been given birth to, and that is the good message to the Zionists to know that your days are numbered and counted with the many and the hundreds of the Ismail Haniyehs which has been given birth to today, the 31st of July 2024. Jazakumullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Jazakallah. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Prof. Helper, final thoughts from you.
Well, look, I'm coming from a very different place from all of you, not only being Jewish and Israeli, but and I'm not coming from a religious place. I'm coming from a very political place, and maybe a secular political place even. And in my view, wishful thinking is not going to work. It's true Israelis are leaving, but you know, it's also true the Palestinians are leaving. Any young Palestinian that wants a life, and that's something we have to stop, but the reality today is any young Palestinian that wants a life leaves. And so, you know, I don't believe in that Israel's just going to collapse on its own or from its own injustice. There's a lot of unjust regimes that have lasted a long time. And I don't think Inshallah is actually a political program either. You know, it's true. The Crusaders were gone after 100 years, but there was an agency. There was a Salah ad-Din. They just didn't fall because they fell because they were unjust. Salah ad-Din was the apartheid system didn't fall because it was unjust. It fell because there was an ANC and there was a political program and so on. And what the Palestinians are lacking, and I'm a part of an organization, Palestinian-led, called the One Democratic State Campaign. And what we're saying is, without a political program, without an end game, the Palestinians are not political actors. You have this tremendous mobilization all over the world for the Palestinians. It's true. I think Israel is becoming a pariah state to a large degree. It's very vulnerable, Israel. But it's not going to just fall. And you know what? What happens if it does fall? With all the military equipment it still has, it could launch a Holocaust in this whole area. You know, a collapsing superpower that's lashing out is not exactly, just collapse by itself is not a political program, and it can make things worse. Our goal, our task is to make it collapse like South African apartheid collapsed, the regime, but to put something in its place. And here's where I think all the factions of the Palestinians, and here it's very difficult, I know, because you're all dispersed and not in contact, but a critical mass of Palestinians has to come together behind a political plan, whether it's one democratic state or whether it's the Muslim Brotherhood plan. I don't know, but there's got to be an end game around which you can mobilize all the support that you have from the international grassroots and even from governments in the world. And that's, I think, what we have to work on, because unless there's a political program, you're not at the table. And, and we know that Israel knows exactly where it's going. I mean, look, Israel believes that Allah's on its side. I mean, that's the problem with religion in a way. They all think that Allah's on their side. The problem is it's got to be a political resolution, and the Palestinians have to step up and say, this is our political program. And then, like the ANC, they'll be able to mobilize. We have BDS in the world. It's very powerful, like it was with South Africa, but it doesn't have an end game. You had in South Africa, one person, one vote. That was the end game, and everybody knew what they were BDSing. Here you can BDS against Israel, and you want Israel to collapse, and it's evil and all that stuff. But to what end? That's the question, and that's the gap I think that the Palestinians are going to have to fill. To what end is this struggle going?
Thank you for that, Prof. And I'm going to ask Professor Nidal, obviously, to respond to one or two of the issues that you have raised. But again, in terms of a political solution as well, and just your final thoughts, because Ismail Haniyeh was the head of the political bureau of Hamas.
Exactly. That's right.
I can't agree more with the Professor Halper. However, I see it probably in complete different reality. First of all, we know that Ismail Haniyeh was killed because he was the leader of the political bureau. To be Muslims, actually, by definition, by default, you are politically savvy. When I mentioned that when we talk about Israel, Israel is not Netanyahu, but rather every Zionist Arab dictator. And we have to tackle them just the same way that we are tackling Israel. I'm speaking this firsthand. I've been tackling those Arab governments through the revolutions where, alhamdulillah, I was the very first one to enter Tahrir Square during the Egyptian revolution and the very last one to walk out of Rab'a. And I'm sure there are so many other people like that are continuing along the same path. Alhamdulillah, I also carried my own contribution against the existence of the state of Israel. Alhamdulillah, and I'm not the only one. I'm talking like I'm as just part of the mass grassroots movement that exists everywhere in the world. And alhamdulillah, by being here in the US, I'm also like doing my part against this barbaric evil, axis of evil called USA and so forth. I will just like end it with one of the tweets that just put recently, maybe a couple of, like a day ago, where I would say, I did say, mark my words, so-called Israel will no longer exist come 2028 elections. I have no doubt about, by the way, if we are to live long enough till 2028, we're going to be talking once upon a time there was such a thing called Israel. And the rest of the tweet says, So it says so-called Israel will no longer exist come 2028 elections, but if Trump wins 2024, USA itself won't exist neither. Now, this is like, you might think that this is like delusion. That's the reality that we're all going to witness in 2 or 3 years from now. And I'm not saying this because of like wishful thinking. I'm saying this as somebody who's been like in the kitchen of the political decision making, whether it's here, whether in some other places around the world. Just because it doesn't look so much like this, well, that's the reality on the ground. Israel cannot survive 1 week without the U.S. Lifeline of 2,000 pound bombs and F-35s. Cannot exist for 1 week without the blood line or the lifeline of food and supplies that comes from Arab countries. We all know that. So to imagine that Israel is this mighty power that can defend itself and let alone like control the region, that's actually absolutely the furthest from the truth. I've dealt with the Israelis long enough. I am Palestinian. I am from Gaza. I was born into this cause. And Israel, without all the support that it gets from US and the Arab dictators, is just quite a joke. And, being in the US, I know that the US itself is a big joke. I know the Arab regimes that I worked very hard to topple, which inshallah they're going to fall very soon. I know they're all a joke. So, the bubble that I'm in the bubble is the bubble of reality, the bubble of history, the bubble of proven facts. And I trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that inshallah, in 2-3 years from now, we're going to be having the very same conversation we're talking about. Once upon a time, there was like some hegemony called USA. There was some colonization called Israel, and there were like this dictator. Remember this dictator and that dictator, and what they were saying. Where are they today? I have no doubt in my mind that I'm going to be making that statement to all of you, inshallah, if Allah gives us like enough life for a couple more years before, inshallah, we join Al-Aqsa and free Al-Aqsa and free Palestine, inshallah, and praying for peace.
Inshallah, that brought us to the end of the broadcast, and I must say it's been most absorbing as well, but also in terms of unpacking the assassination of the great Hamas leader, Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh. To you, Dr. Firoz Osman, Professor Nidal Sakar, Maulana Abdul Khalik Ali, and also to you, Professor Jeff Halper. We do appreciate you taking time out, and also we lost our sister, Leila Abu Rajid. We thank her as well, but for now, we wish you all the best, and please take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Well, that brings us to the end of this broadcast, and clearly it was at short notice, but we need to thank the Salam Media team for putting this entire program together, and at short notice, all the guests that obviously securing the guests for tonight's broadcast. It was an absolute necessary program to have, considering that this has obviously created international reaction to the assassination and the martyrdom of Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh, rahimahullah. And we continue making dua for him. We continue making dua for the people of Palestine, and also for his family, for his loved ones as well. He has paid the ultimate price. He has made the greatest sacrifice. He has sacrificed with his life. And we make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevate his status and that of a martyr in the gardens of Jannah, inshallah. And with that, I'm going to be signing off from myself and the team here at Salam Media. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.